How do we know if unschooling isn't working? One of my private coaching group members who's new to unschooling asked me this question, and I know some of you have had people ask you too. If not outright, it's often at the heart of those reluctant spouses or involved family members' questions. Or sometimes something feels off kilter. Maybe we just can't put our finger on it, but this isn't what we thought it was going to look like. And frankly, it doesn't feel all that great. So that's what I want to expand on here this week on the Unschooling Mom to Mom podcast. I'm Sue Patterson, your host here, and the human behind all things unschooling mom to mom. My own 3 kids are grown now, and I've circled back to let you all know that unschooling really works. When we were in the trenches, a lot of this was theoretical. It seemed like it would work, but we didn't know that many grown unschoolers. But now, nearly 30 years later, there are a lot. I even wrote a book called Homeschooled Teens, where 75 young people spoke about their lives without school. They're super candid as they answered all the questions people want to know, like, how was it? Did you have any friends? Did you go to college? Do you still like your mom? The real questions that we want to know. The book's at Amazon. It's also free in my membership group if you're looking for a reason to join. It's been so reassuring to lots of parents over the years. I'll link it for you in the show notes. I bring the book up because sometimes we live in communities where we don't see a lot of other people choosing this unconventional path. And it's important to know that we've had a few decades or waves of modern homeschooled generations roll through ahead of you. I was on an Instagram live last week with Liana Francisco, who is in her 40s and was unschooled with her brothers. She's unschooling her own child now. And we took questions, which was cool, but she referred to me as a pioneer. And we didn't start until the mid 90s. There were definitely unschoolers with kids older than mine when we entered into this. I think of the modern homeschooling, unschooling arena beginning with those from the 70s and 80s. I was definitely the new kid on the block in 1996. I think I was the start of the suburban homeschooling wave. The parents who took their kids out of school because it just wasn't good enough. Not really to live on the land or for religious reasons. We were a new crowd entering the community. I guess I may have to embrace the OG aspect after all. Maybe I'll do a podcast on the history and these waves that I've seen. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to talk about that. But I'm getting off track. Back to the question of how to tell if unschooling isn't working. Actually, it was my group member's spouse asking. It seemed he wanted a little reassurance as they started this journey into the unknown. But one of my reasons people join the coaching group is because they want to know what I've seen over all these years. Have I seen unschooling not work for some kids? This question comes up fairly often. You may have had someone ask you. A lot of people have really reluctant spouses or friends and family who are incredibly skeptical, asking, thinking, how will you know when this little experiment of yours has run its course? Or worse, what if you think you did fine, but the kids disagree when they're adults? These seem like understandable questions. You may even be asking them too. It's not unusual to look for the exit sign when you're somewhere uncomfortable. And for many of us, unschooling is uncomfortable or unfamiliar. So, yeah, I have some ideas. Okay, let's break it down. I thought about that idea of unschooling not working, and I immediately thought, well, working for who? Because if a parent takes the time to understand it, it will work for any and every child. Because who has freedom and then says, nah, I think I want to be bossed around by someone else? Kids are natural learners. All humans are. They may be just trying to get steadier footing after years of being told what to learn and when to learn it. So sometimes it takes a little while for them to feel comfortable, often with them wondering if their parent is going to change their mind and yank away whatever it was they want to explore more. They may even have some stories in their own heads about their choices being not good or not good enough or lazy or not living up to their potential or something they won't be able to make a living at. All those phrases that may have been tossed their way when they were choosing to play more or not comply with the adults' choices. But their brains are always learning, just maybe not what you were expecting them to learn about. Which leads me to the real issue. Unschooling works for all kids, but it sometimes doesn't work for every parent. Not every parent has the courage to do something so unconventional. Not every parent has the bandwidth to learn and unlearn what they need to make it work. Not every parent wants this choice because unschooling is not always an easy path. Everyone's baggage is different. Realistically, some of us have other priorities and don't have the inclination to make all the shifts needed for unschooling to work well. While all learning is natural and your child will learn, parents who opt for this path have a lot of unlearning to do. To be successful at unschooling, parents have to work on their own communication skills, get their ego in check, look at their own childhood to see what was true and what wasn't. And that's just not something everyone wants to do for all kinds of reasons. So, admittedly, this will be harder for some than for others. But if you've tried everything and you're wondering if you could do this, or if I haven't scared you off yet with all of that, I have a ton of tools to help you along the way. You don't have to do this alone or reinvent the wheel. I'll put links in the notes for the Jumping into Unschooling course that you can watch. I even have a video where I can show you behind the scenes a little bit because it's such a good course explaining how to do this, plus unschooling guides and videos that can help you. I want you to unschool because I think kids deserve to have those kinds of relationships with you and with their own learning. But let's circle back to that original question. How will I know if it's not working? And I thought of 6 signs you could look for. And they might be things like kids aren't sharing what they're interested in. They may share through behavior, though, not through words, but it's up to the parents to notice. Or parents aren't finding opportunities for them to expand on their interests. The third, parents don't really like spending time with the kids, so they're not so inclined to create connection points throughout the day. The fourth, parents' personal life could be really overwhelming right now, and they simply don't have the bandwidth to help kids full time, in which case the free childcare at school is a good idea. Fifth would be the parents are not interested in looking into deschooling to see what needs to be dismantled or how society has pushed concepts that don't fit your family. And then the last one, the home is not safe for kids, emotionally or physically. So if these things are happening, think of them as your red flags. Resist the tendency to see unschooling as not working just because the kids can't rattle off the state capitals or aren't interested in writing a research paper. Things like this point you back to deschooling because you're setting up goalposts that come from a standardized school experience, not the individualized learning path that your kids are experiencing. These are not red flags. Red flags are going to fall into 2 categories, really. The kids aren't thriving, or you're not wanting or can't do the things needed. If the issue is the kids, then your job is to do more deschooling, but also work on your own communication skills. Sometimes we haven't really learned how to connect with our own kids. It usually wasn't modeled for us as kids ourselves, and society really doesn't do much to help with this. Observe them more. Ask without advising. Connect without trying to control something. It's hard for some of us, but these are all things we can work on. And when we do, we become the parents we want to be, and everyone benefits. So this may end up being a fairly controversial podcast, but that's my answer to the question of how do I know if unschooling is not working? I did a podcast a while back, number 104. It's all about how hard will unschooling be for me as the parent? And that may be something to go listen to next. I'll link to it in the show notes in the description if you're listening over at YouTube. And if you find yourself connecting with some of those 6 signs that you may have a red flag showing up, you can always reach out. We can talk on the phone. Some people talk to me once a month and I become their unschooling personal trainer. That's fun to build that kind of relationship. Others like the community brainstorming for solutions like I have in the Creating Confidence membership group. In both cases, you're not alone. It's unfamiliar ground, but sometimes you just need a little help. Reach out if you do. Enjoy the kids, and I'll be back again next week.